Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to give you my final opinion on the Qidi Q1 Pro and if you should spend your hard-earned money on it. If you don't have a lot of time and you want to hear the good, here it is. ABS on the Q1 Pro is absolutely mwah! But if you want to hear the not so good things about the Q1 Pro, then stick around because I'm going to tell you all about it. Full disclosure, this printer was sent to me by Qidi, no money exchange hands, so I can be as unbiased as possible. So right now I have this printer for about 2 months and there are a lot of things to like about it, but there are also some things that, yeah, could be a lot better. So let's start with the bad. And I want to clarify that with the bad, it's not all that major of an issue, but they have to be mentioned nonetheless. So the first thing that annoyed me was going to be the fan shroud. While it's nice, it's magnetic, very easy to remove, there is a fan cable on the cover that you will have to remove on the back. I think a connection on the front would be a lot better, or using those bouncing gold contacts so it just gets powered when you put it on would be a lot better than a cable on the back. Then let's talk about the hot end. The hot end, nothing wrong with it. The only thing that is really annoying is that they are using proprietary nozzles, which mean they are a tad bit shorter than the Volcano nozzles. I have seen some adaptations where they are putting something behind the magnet so they can put it lower and that way you can put a Volcano in it. In my opinion, they should have just installed a Volcano nozzle, but it's not really expensive. I'm going to display the pricing right over here. This is going to be, I think, for 2 nozzles. So yeah, it's not that bad. You only need one of the nozzles if you're printing a 0.4 because it is a bimetal hardened nozzle. You can print abrasive stuff and all of that. But still, it is a nozzle that is not easily purchasable. Then let's talk about the filament runout sensor. The filament runout sensor is using a Hall sensor, so it means that it reads the position of the lever that is going to get depressed when the filament enters, but it is not working that great. I did a little test up front before I started this video and yet again it failed again. Now the weird thing is when we paused the printer and I moved that little sensor, when we restarted the print, it mentioned that, hey, you ran out of filament. So the Hall sensor that is in the Qidi Q1 Pro on my version is not reliable. So I am also in the groups on Facebook to see what other people are experiencing with this printer, and it looks like I am not the only one that has trouble with the filament runout sensor. It's not because it's sticking, it's just the sensor. I think it stops reading or it is not precise enough. So they definitely have to revise the Hall sensor that is in here right now. There is also a tangle sensor here on the back, which means that if your filament is getting stuck, for example, if you are printing with a spool, the last piece of your filament is going to have a hook to hook on your spool. And when it reaches the PTFE tubing, so it's probably going to encounter a lot of resistance. And this also triggers the filament runout sensor. So the tangle sensor seems to be working great. The runout sensor, yeah, not that much. Then let's talk about the build plate. The build plate is great. It's 250 by 250. The only thing is it is double-sided, but it is on both sides textured. We are not getting a smooth side. And on the website of Qidi, you are not able to buy these smooth sides. And because 250 by 250 is not widely available, the bamboos are slightly bigger, the Crealities are slightly smaller. So you will end up buying other sheets that are bigger and you will have to cut them down with an angle grinder. This is not ideal. I would like to see more options in the shop from Qidi. So Qidi, I would like to see more options. I would really like to see a smooth version of this build plate. So aligning the build plate is also really annoying. You only have one tab in the middle to align the build plate, and I can assure you when you try to insert it, you are all over the place with your plate and you end up realigning this build plate multiple times. I would really prefer to see 2 notches right up here, so just put them against the notches and you can put them down. That being said, I have seen somebody on YouTube replacing the complete plastic shroud around the build plate, and he has replaced it with its own design, probably printed in ABS, and that design is incorporating 2 notches, so you can do that effortless. I will link it down below. Then one thing I really like about the Qidi Q1 Pro is that this thing has an active heater. There is a PTC element down below and it is going to heat up this printer at 60 degrees. However, this PTC element seems to be not that safe. It is mains powered, which means on my version, this heater is going to output 230 volts. Now you can say that is not a big problem until you know that the fin structure is actually what they use to power the elements. Yikes, because you can just put your finger in it and you will get zapped. So I want to say two things about it. First, I don't think it's a major issue because it's only under power when it's heating. You get the warning up front when you get close with your fingers. It's super hot. It was really hot to try and put my probes in it to show you guys that it turns off when you put off the heating. Now, that being said, it is still not safe. If you are doing some shenanigans while it's heating and you are going to put your fingers in it, you will get a nice zap. And then the last thing is that this heater is probably a EU violation. With that I mean is that everything that is mains powered needs to be double insulated. You could argue that the door is the double insulation, but it is too easy to get your fingers in there, so this is not a good reason. Now, there are PTC heaters that are super safe and you can put your fingers in it all you want and you will just get burned, but they have chosen to do the cheaper version, and this is actually a bit the trend of the complete printer. They cheaped out on a lot of things, but this is one thing they went too far with. The PTC heater is definitely a safety risk. It's not great. They definitely have to change that thing to be more safe in the future. Like I said, I think it's even an EU violation. So yeah. Then let's talk about the printer interface. While it's nice and clear, it is super slow to go through the menus. While the menus are loading, you are waiting for 2 to 3 seconds before everything loads, so you can push another button. So the interface really slow. Then the interface is also very limited. You can adjust your Z-stepping while you are printing. So if you are having not enough squish, you are able to put a new Z offset in, and it is remembering the previous Z offset, so you only have to do it once in the printer and you will not have to bother in your slicer. You can also do it in your slicer, but when it's too late, you can put in some Z offset in it. There is a calibration menu, you have some small settings, but it is very limited. Then the fit and finish is not that great. The door, while it is aligning with the bottom magnet, it isn't on the top magnet. Then the top polycarbonate magnet, I have a riser in it right now, but even without the riser, it isn't fitting really well in the top surface, and it is going to spring out on one corner. So it looks like the fit and finish of the plastic parts are, while they are not bad, they are also not super great. Then we have the software side of the printer, and I'm going to be honest, this thing needs a little bit of work. Then also the startup routine is a bit annoying. It's going to wipe, it's going to do its leveling, it's going to heat in the front corner, and then it's going to ooze the filament that is in it. When you're printing a PLA or an ABS, it's not that bad, but once you will start with printing TPU, you will see it will ooze a huge amount of filament on your build plate while it could just park above the waste bin. This thing already got 2 firmware updates, but still the printhead is parking in front, so they didn't change that. Then the clipper version on this system and the fluid version is outdated. It is about 2 years old. This is a new printer, and it is also a dirty version, which means they have done some manipulations in the clipper to work on this machine. So updating to a new version of clipper or fluid is probably going to brick this machine, so be very careful doing it, only with the official firmware from Qidi. There are also some weird gremlins in this machine. It paused for a few times. Now with the last update, I could see that the pausing isn't a problem anymore, but now we getting false probes. With false probes, I mean it is trying to measure, it is failing, and it's doing again, and then all of a sudden it says we have reached our maximum amount of probing. Then you will restart the same file and then it probes just like normal. So this is also a little gremlin I have found to be on the 0.18 version of this firmware. Like I said, there is a starting routine. The printer will go to the corner right in the back and it will wipe the nozzle so it's nice and clean. This system works perfectly. I have no issues at all, but I would like to see an option where you can turn it off. I can imagine that some people printing PLA don't see the need of this wiping. You will not have the issue of a dirty nozzle and then you can just skip it. Now, right now, it is not skippable. I think you can remove some command lines in the beginning, but yeah, it should be an option, like for a TPU, for instance, that you say, yep, I want to do the cleaning and I want to see the heat up going above the waste bin and not in the front corner. These should be slicer options in my opinion. Then also my configuration on this version seems to be a little bit broken. It is complaining about time-lapse configuration that is not working. I have contacted Qidi with another account, so I did like I was a customer. I have to say the customer support of Qidi is super fast. Every day I got a response from them and they really actively tried to fix this printer. but they failed, or I have to say I just gave up on it. So it was about 2 weeks of going back and forward, changing some configuration files and all that, but still this thing does not want to do any time lapses. Now, for as far as I can see, this is an isolated issue. It is only my machine that is experiencing time lapse issues. So the camera feed is working, but we don't have time lapses. So yeah, for me that is not too bad. I don't care about the time lapse, but as far as I can see, this is isolated, you will not have a problem with it. But kudos for Qidi for trying. They really tried very hard to fix this issue. Then about the camera quality, it doesn't seem that great. The picture quality is also not that great. We can see that up front of the printer we have a nice LED strip, but it is still too dark to see what's going at the back of your printer. So I would like to see more LEDs incorporated in all the corners of the printer instead of one strip up front. There's also a Qidi app to connect this printer to your phone so you can see what is happening remotely, but the camera feed is not working. So for me, this is a useless app. However, you can install Octo everywhere on this printer. It's pretty easy. You put in some commands in your command prompt and then you can reach this printer from wherever you want, and you can have a nice visual on your phone with a camera. I think it's limited to 2 minutes per 5 minutes, but still you can go to your work, check out the thing that you want to print, and if it's not good, you can stop or cancel the print and you will get a nice email notification when this thing has finished its print. Physical size of the printer is pretty big, but it is not big enough. You could remember when we did the first look of this machine, we had issues with first layer. We got inconsistencies, and we could also notice while we were making this prop for Fallout that we had some consistency issues on the front of the build plate. So I thought it was because the PTFE tubing was too short. I have done some experimentations and it seems that the issue is mostly fixed. It is still a little bit inconsistent up front, but it is way better. And now with replacing the PTFE tubing for a longer one, we finally have our first perfect sheet, our first perfect layer. I have also seen on the Facebook groups that there are some inconsistencies in the corners or people complaining about their first layers. So putting in a longer PTFE tubing fixed my issue, but that meant that we had to print a riser so we can get this polycarbonate sheet higher up and keep it from scratching. This is super silly. Now we have to put on a riser again for the top plate. It is already bulky, just make it 12 millimeters higher so this plate sits up higher. You can put in a longer PTFE tubing and all the problems go away. We also have that problem with the Creality K1, the K1C and the Max, and the Qidi Q1 Pro. Same issue, you will have to print a riser if you don't want to see your panel scratched. One thing I also want to mention with replacing the PTFE tubing is that the first time I used this printer without the modification, my Z offset was perfectly, and now we have over extrusion, so I have to put in a Z offset of 0.01 to get those perfect first layers because it was over squishing the filament. So this is also a good example that we really had an issue with the PTFE tubing. And the spool holder that is sticking out on the side, while it works, it is a bit wobbly. I'm not a big fan of the system. I mostly print out of a dryer because I'm using ABS filament, but I think there will be a lot of different people going to design something for the back. There is probably already some files. You can change this up, but while it is usable, you are going to lose a lot of free real estate on the side. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the spool holder. Then let's talk about the print quality. We already did some first tests on the first look video. We have printed any material I have on hand. And now testing the Fallout laser rifle, we could also see that the print quality is pretty good, but it is not perfect. While it is better than, for instance, a Creality K1, we still see some inconsistencies in the layers. It is nothing majorly bad or something like that. We are printing everything at 250 millimeters a second, and we have actually tested also the speeds. We have it right here. This is printed at 300 millimeters a second, which means it's about 25 millimeters cubed. And then we have the same test again for 250 millimeters, which is about 20 millimeters cubed. So when we put these things on top of each other, we can see we get a nice result at 300 millimeters a second and at 250 millimeters a second. We can see that we have some layering going on, and this was done before we replaced the PTFE tubing. If we are going to look at the parts that we printed after the replacement, you can see that the layering got a lot better. So it's safe to say that the print quality is really good on this printer, but if you are going to see some weird stuff going on with layering, check out your PTFE tubing, make sure it's not too short like in my sample. You will have to extend it by buying a new Bowden tube and you will have to print a riser. When you have done that, you get massively and epic ABS prints just like this one. So those were all the bad things about the Q1 Pro. There are still concerns, but nothing major except for the PTC heater, I think. Now actually talk about the good things of the Q1 Pro. The motion system and calibration of the system seems to be working perfectly. Now we have replaced the Bowden tube, we get perfect first layers just like this one. Also the compensation for the build plate is working perfectly. For some reason, my build plate is a bit bowed like this and the system is compensating for it perfectly. We can see it on this layer test. Also VFA, not an issue at all. We have done a lot of printing. We can see the vectoring from the file on this print, but this is not VFA. I did find some spots with VFA, but they were so faint, it is absolutely not an issue on the Q1 Pro. Then also a thing I want to note is that the motors that are used in the system are not of a brand I ever heard before, so they are for me a no brand motor system, but they seem to work absolutely perfect because we don't have any VFA, we have nice speeds, everything is pretty consistent, so I think they did a really great job on the motion system. Then let's talk about the heating system. So we have a PTC heater, we can put it at 60 degrees Celsius, and then starting the print and actually getting the first layer done will take around 12 minutes. So heating everything up to 16 degrees in about 12 minutes is acceptable in my opinion. We have a pretty big volume for one PTC heater. Also the build plate, while it is DC heated, it is absolutely not an issue and you can reach 95°C easily under 10 minutes. Then about the speeds, I have seen that the acceleration is a little bit lower than I have seen on other printers, but you will get good print quality and you will get high speed. We have printed this complete rifle from Fallout in 250mm a second. I have also tried at 300mm a second. We can see that actually extruding at 25mm cubed, not an issue at all. So we can see that the extruder and hot end system seems to be working great. The nozzle, we have printed carbon fiber, we have printed all sorts of things. It seems that we actually have a one-stop solution for everything that you want to print. Good extrusion system, good speeds, nothing to complain about. We could also see in the first look that we had problems with the power recovery system. So we have unplugged the machine in the first video and we could see it was a massive failure. We lost our print. I have done the same testing on the new update, the 0.18 one, and we can see that the power resume actually works now. In the previous version, I think it was the 0.16, they have added the functionality to do updates over the air. While I have tried to go from 0.16 to 0.18, this didn't work. I think it was not connecting to the server. Right now, if we are looking, we actually see a server while we are trying to connect to a network. We have to test it in the future, but I think from now on, we probably should be able to see updates over the air. Now, that being said, if you're not able to update over the air, I have done the update with the USB in the port in the back. It is also very easy to do. The only thing that is a bit weird is that when you download the firmware version, your Windows is going to 100% flag it as a virus. So you will have to turn off the virus protection from Windows if you want to be able to download the new firmware version, put it on a USB stick and get it in the machine. I have asked this question, why this is happening, why we are getting those viruses and all of that, and they have told me that there is some code or a file in there that is getting flagged as a virus, but they have to use that piece of code to connect with the Qidi app. So really annoying. You will have to do some things to be able to download it. And that being said, the Qidi app, well, you can see everything except for the camera. Yeah, there is no point in going to download the Qidi app for me at this time. So it's really annoying that you have to turn off your antivirus so you can install a firmware update. And we have the Qidi slicer. I think it is a fork from the one from Prusa Slicer, and I have to say the slicer works really great. The only thing that is really weird is the calibration stuff. If you're going to try to do calibration through the slicer of Qidi, it's going to under extrude, so you are nothing with the calibration tool of Qidi right now. This is on my machine. I don't know if this is a problem on any other machine, but on my machine the calibration tool doesn't work. That being said, Everything else works perfectly. I have tested plenty of materials and I still have to see this printer completely fail an object first try. The rest of the slicer is working perfectly. All the models that I put on this build plate are coming out perfectly. The support system that I used for this system, I have never seen so good support removal from ABS like I have seen it in the Qidi Q1 Pro with the Qidi slicing software. You also have a nice device overview and you can get into the fluid by using the Qidi slicer. So you will have the fluid interface integrated in the slicer, which is also really nice. You can do everything from the slicer that you can do in fluid. So yeah, a really good integration on the Qidi slicer software. Then about the noise, this is pretty quiet. I have compared it with my Creality K1 and I can already tell you that this system is a lot quieter than the Creality K1. The fans are quieter, the complete system is quieter. I can just talk next to it without just absolutely annoying me because of the sound, which I couldn't say about the Creality K1. Now, this is more focused on hot environment printing. You can absolutely print PLA in it and you can use the fans integrated in the system. I tend to don't use the fan system, so for me, this printer is super quiet. The motion system is super quiet. It is all running super smooth. So I think from a noise perspective, you're going to be really happy with this printer. So then the last thing is going to be pricing. So right now, even now, 2 months later shooting this video, this is still on a pre-sale and you can buy this printer in Europe. I think it's on 3D Jake for 469 euros. Now the official retail pricing should be $599. Well, in my opinion, $599 is a bit too expensive. In the first look video, we didn't know what the pricing was and I said that anything between $400 and $500 is going to be an absolutely amazing price. So I would still say that anything around $500 is going to be an absolute steal for this printer. If you are going to see $600 in the future, yeah, then I'm a bit disappointed. Now, my main comparison for this machine is going to be the Creality K1 because that was my first and only Core XY printer. I have bought that thing with my own money. We get about a 200mm cubed system of that and I think I paid even more than I did for this machine. So if you would ask me what my choice is going to be between the Qidi Q1 Pro and the Creality K1, I think this is going to answer all of your questions. I have actually sold off the Creality K1. It was too small for me. I couldn't handle the VFA artifacting. For me, it was not usable to do some really good prototyping on it, but just because it wasn't reliable. In my opinion, the K1, not reliable enough for me to do good work on it, and then we had the issues like VFA artifacting, the noise and all of that. So if you would ask me, and for the same pricing, should you pick the Q1 Pro or the Creality K1, this is going to be a no-brainer for me. The Qidi Q1 Pro is going to win that battle hands down. And apparently I am not the only one that is thinking that way, because I have posted 1 month ago a little poll with you guys, the community, what you think about the Creality versus the Q1, and apparently 58% thinks that the Creality K1 is absolutely done for, and then the other 42% thinks we are going to have a new race to the bottom. The really weird thing is that nobody thinks that the K1 is a premium printer. All jokes aside, I don't think we are going to get a real race to the bottom, but it is really cool to know that you think that the K1 is done for. So this is going to be it. If you're going to ask my opinion, I think the Qidi Q1 Pro is absolutely a solid product. They have some ironing to do to get out of the box, but when they get the box out, then I think this is an absolutely solid system. If you value unbiased and true opinions, then consider subscribing to the channel, give me a big thumbs up, let me know down below what you think about the Qidi Q1 Pro, and if you want to support the channel even more, you can become a member for €1 a month. It will support my adventures going forward for stuff that we have to buy for review, and I want to give a special shout out to these people. You guys are the real MVP and I appreciate you guys so much. That's gonna be it. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.